We got a good group assembled. We'll go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Jake Bell. I'm a manager here at the Partnership for Public Service, supporting the AI Center for Government and the work that we do here. Today, we have a great event for you that's part of our AI Use Case Showcase series, where we feature folks working through all levels of government who are using AI to better achieve their agency's mission and serve the public. This one we're calling Perspectives from Local Government Leaders, because this time we're doing something a little bit different. Usually we have folks from various levels, really focusing on kind of the city and county level today, as you'll see from our panelists. Justice Louis Brandeis popularized the phrase, that states are the laboratories of democracy. I would say that even more so at a level, we see that happening in cities and counties, and especially when it comes to AI, some of the most innovative and directly touching the lives of citizens' work that I have seen is happening at that city and county level. So that's what we're excited to really feature today. Before we dive into that, I'd love to do just a quick overview of the work that we do here. So the Partnership for Public Service, if you're unaware of our work, we're a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that's focused on building a better government and a stronger democracy. We've been doing this work for over 20 years, almost 25 this year, by helping government recruit, empower, and retain the nation's best talent, equipping public sector leaders to serve the public good. We do that through the work of our Public Service Leadership Institute. And we work to ensure that the public trusts and engages with a well-functioning government. What we're showing here on the screen is an overview of what we do at the AI Center for Government. So, the work that we do cuts across those same areas that the partnership works, just focused on AI. So we develop AI leaders. This is primarily done through our AI Government Leadership Program, which I'm excited to say that both of our panelists today are alumni of that program. So we'll talk maybe a little bit more about that as we go. We also do work to strengthen AI talent capacity. So we have programs to help agencies at various levels to recruit and retain AI talent. We also empower AI literacy through events like this and other programs. And we celebrate agencies at all levels of government who are using AI effectively through, bright spot blog posts that we post, as well as we have an AI awards that we're launching this year. So stay tuned on our website, more to come for that. But I want to highlight that the AI Center for Government is made possible by our generous founding supporters, Google.org and Microsoft. So thanks to them for making this work possible. So with that, I would love to jump in and introduce the great panelists that we have for you today. So Kate Carter is the AI Program Manager in the Information Technology Department for the city of Tucson, Arizona. And Ty Howard is the Chief Information Officer and Interagency Information Technology Director for Frederick County, Maryland. So what we'll be doing today is that each of our panelists has prepared a presentation where they're going to walk through specific uses of AI in their work. So we'll first have Kate do a presentation. We'll then have Ty give his presentation, and then I'll lead some Q&A with the panelists for a little while, and then we'll open it up to questions from you all. So if you have a question that you're thinking about, please use the Q&A function that you'll find kind of down in the sidebar, or kind of whatever size your window looks like. So that's where we'll be receiving those questions, and I'll put those questions in front of the panelists when we get closer to the end of the event. I would also like to flag that this event is being recorded, and the recording will be made available in the coming week on the AI Center for Government website, as well as the Partnership for Public Services YouTube channel. So you can access it there and share it with your colleagues. So with that, let me just do a better introduction of Kate and the important work that she does. So Kate, as I mentioned, works with the city of Tucson, where she leads efforts to responsibly evaluate and implement artificial intelligence across city departments. She also chairs the city's Advanced Technology Committee and is currently pursuing a PhD focused on AI in healthcare. So a huge thank you to Kate for taking the time to be with us, and we're looking forward to learning more about your work. Over to you, Kate.
Thank you so much, Jake, for the wonderful introduction. I'm going to share my screen, and we are going to talking about an amazing use case that's taking place right here at the city of Tucson. Just want to double check screen is okay. Perfect. You guys, if you've ever had to call 911, the reality is, we're not thinking about whether or not someone will answer. We're like, we know, we're just hoping, and we expect that somebody will answer. We're expecting that the technology that they're going to use is going to work. And as somebody that's calling, you're not even thinking about that. You just expect them, one, to answer, and two, to know what to do. But behind the scenes, if you look at this image, like look how many screens that this individual has to sit in front of. We expect the CAD technology just to be up and working, but the reality is this entire infrastructure, this system is under a lot of strain. And here at the city of Tucson, we have introduced technology called DisGen 911 to help us train our 911 dispatchers. And I'm
Hey,
excited
Kate,
to tell you,
sorry to jump in. It looks like your slides aren't currently sharing, so
oh, no
maybe
way,
just no worries.
that's sad.
Thought I saw them for a second. There we go. It's coming up.
Now they're,
Perfect.
yeah.
That's great. Sorry for
Yeah,
interrupting.
or no, please. I'm so glad that you did because you need to see all of these screens. I had the opportunity to tour our 911 center and I was in awe because, again, I've never given it any thought. I'm that person that's had to call 911 and I just expect them to answer and I just expect them to know what to do. But their work is stressful. And so when you have the opportunity to really sit and think about it, if you've never been a 911 dispatcher, um, it is there's a lot of strain there. And so I'm excited that we have the opportunity to introduce this technology and I'm excited to tell you guys all about it. All right, so our vision, we are trying to do something which I think it seems simple, but the reality is we want to prepare our 911 dispatchers for one of the hardest jobs. Again, I've never given it any thought. I've never wanted to be a dispatcher, but when I think about 12-hour shifts, answering calls back to back, and you never know what that call is going to be, we want to prepare those individuals to the best of their ability. And so, utilizing this Gen 911 allows us to train them with real simulation and give them better coaching and give them an idea of what it's actually like prior to just going onto the floor, all while keeping humans in the loop and, of course, within city governance and compliance. What is the problem? You guys, there is a 25% national vacancy for 911 dispatchers. When I was doing a little bit of research, they are paid on average $43,000 to $46,000 a year. And I don't know about you, but in this economy, that is not enough with how stressful this job is and how important this job is. Um, and so we were looking at where are the gaps and how can this solution help support those gaps. One of those is inconsistent coaching. You can have a coach that maybe doesn't have the tenure and the experience, and or the training ability and the leadership ability to really invest and help someone along this training journey. The solution prior to, we didn't really have the data around capturing how somebody was doing throughout their training process. And then there was confidence gaps. How do you measure somebody's confidence before they go out onto the floor? Ultimately, we were doing live trainings with individuals, and then there's a high drop-off rate because people think that, yes, I want to do this job, I want to make a difference, and then you get in there and you realize what this actually is like, and you're like, I'm not ready. Actually, this is too stressful. And so I think that implementing a solution like this gives somebody a real understanding before they make that decision to fully commit into the amazing work that this is that we all rely on. So again, our proposed solution was this Gen 911, and Sam or Jake, someone's going to drop a link into the chat, and I highly encourage you to test it out. You have a few free trials if you sign up with your email, but what it does is create a realistic call scenario. What is amazing about this is because we have an enterprise license, it is geolocated, and so it is picking up Tucson streets, Tucson parks, and so when you are picking a scenario, you are going to hear places in town that you probably know about. There is a slew of scenarios from gunshot wound to car accident to just a man down in the park. You never know who's going to be calling on the other end when you answer the phone, which is fascinating because I've tried this out and I would get an elderly person screaming, and then I had a Gen Alpha person that's like, someone's acting real sus and has like the Gen Alpha, Gen Z lingo. And of course, that's probably how somebody that young is calling 911. And so it really gives you an idea of what it would be like with different scenarios, with different generations calling. And so 10 out of 10 recommend you trying this out on your own time, not right now, but on your own time, to see what individuals are like. And so you'll have just a newfound respect for the work that they do. It does give performance analysis, and so it gives a sentiment score, which again allows us to QA and QI that as human trainers, and that's where we come in with that human review. So is this system scoring you at an 8, let's say, and would an actual human trainer also score you within that range? And if not, maybe there's some hallucinations taking place and we need to talk with a vendor. But it's giving us that real-time feedback so you can see your own progress. So today, this is operationalized. This is fully implemented. We've hit the ground running. We have 160 members, 67 members on the platform. We have run through 9 training classes, and to date have had over 4,000 simulated calls. There are 36 plus states utilizing this technology. I used it to volunteer at a high school to spark curiosity for those younger generation to maybe become 911 dispatch operators. I was not ready for the scenarios and the individuals calling. So again, this is real life. So you will get people calling that are angry and frustrated, maybe cursing, just as you would probably in real life. And so just be aware, you don't know what's going to happen when you do answer that call. But I am really excited that this is fully operationalized and we are expanding in other areas, which I will touch on in a couple of minutes. So our stakeholders, of course, operationally, we have the whole public safety communications department, the new hire team, as well as the employees. For governance and oversight, as Jake had mentioned, I chair the Advanced Technology Committee here at the City of Tucson. So prior to this being implemented, this technology was reviewed by our ATC, as well as the AI program, which I run, and of course, cybersecurity and governance, risk, and compliance. And then vendor participation. So if you're interacting with artificial intelligence, you know that it's not necessarily perfect. And so we were concerned about hallucinations. We were concerned if somebody that is a potential dispatch operator and they have an accent, would it score them differently? These are the things and the questions that we need to be asking and looking out for, and then relaying back to the vendor so that they can continue to enhance their product and improve. And we are looking to expand into Comms Coach as well as Motorola. And I think I'll touch on that in just a second. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that here. Data privacy and considerations. This technology, all of the data stays within our city tenant. So no personal data is shared. We're not training the model. It's CGIS compliant and held to our cybersecurity standards. And it does have role-based access controls and audit logs, et cetera, so that we can go back and review. So how it works, it is AI voice simulation. So they're using natural language processing. And there is performance analytics. And we're using this as a pre-hire assessment. So again, individuals, you show up with this heart of gold because you want to do the good work. And it is not until you realize maybe some of the calls that you get and how traumatizing and sad and how quick you need to be on your feet. I mean, if you saw, there's 9 different screens that you need to be aware of. You need to be able to listen and type as well as communicate with the officers or the fire department. There is a multitasking to the utmost. And so this helps us while you're going through that training to assess if you yourself are really ready for this type of role. I think as well as if you're not quite ready, but you're still in it, and this is still the direction that you want to head, it allows us to help coach and improve your success rates. Of course, human in the loop. This is fully supervised. We were concerned. I may have mentioned during the review of this that individuals that we would rely on the scores from this technology and maybe decide if somebody continued on through the hiring process, and we wanted to make sure that was not the case. So we never wanted to have HR HR controls, whether somebody does pass or not. This is a training tool, and we don't want to make full decisions. So we have human in the loop. There's no automated actions. And then, of course, the role-based access and governance controls in the event we need to go back and actually assess. Success metrics, what do those look like? Speed to readiness. I think operational impact is a huge one. Again, this is a very stressful job and there's a high turnover rate. And so we need to get new training classes in, and this is one way that we've been able to do that. Trainer feedback, workforce feedback is another success metric, as well as um, introducing new risk and bias. These are things that we're looking at in terms of success criteria. So we want feedback, we want improved readiness, we want reduced training time, and then making sure we're not introducing any new risks. The implementation plan, once the ATC approved it, there was onboarding to the platform, supervisor training, and then we are in full operation mode. So we have fully deployed, and now we're doing QA monitoring. They're really, the public and safety communications team is really proud of implementing this. And so it's exciting to hear that they're as excited and that this has been successful. Our governance and reporting, again, looks like the ATC approval that happened last year in January. There was conditions to the use. This can't be used for hiring and firing decisions. And then there's a expansion pathway. They are all in, guys. They are all in. So what does it look like for scalability and the future roadmap? We have implemented this. It is operationalized. Next, we're looking at Comms Coach, which will help with QA and QI for 911 and 311 calls. That was just approved in February. And then we're also looking at a Motorola virtual response assistant to take 311 calls. That will hopefully be rolled out soon. And then pre-hire assessment. And so we are implementing artificial intelligence at different levels within public safety. And I'm really excited because this department, again, we rely on them as citizens, and we want them to be fully trained and ready to answer that call and respond when we need them. So here at the City of Tucson, we are investing in the people behind 911. I really believe in this type of technology and the solution so that we can help support dispatchers do their job with confidence, because it really is high stakes and it really is high pressure. And so we are investing in those individuals so that they can do their work even better. And with that, without further ado, I just want to thank you guys. Thank you for the Partner Public Service and the amazing program, the AI Government Leadership Program. And I don't know if Antigone is here in the audience from the City of Tucson, but I wanted to give her a huge shout out because she is also a fellow alumni of this program, and it's been wonderful. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kate, for sharing that important work. We see how the federal level gets so much attention in this country, and certainly, right, there's very important things that happen at the federal level, but I'm really a big advocate of like the things that touch people's day-to-day lives the most come from local government. And I think this was a great example of that, right? Of like things that people hope they may not have to interact with, but they see, touching their lives all the time, and how AI can be used to improve it in meaningful ways. So I really appreciate that. I especially appreciate how, even for someone who maybe is at a different level of government or who's working on a different problem, just the steps that you walked through, I think, are applicable to everybody, right?
Absolutely.
Understanding that problem, putting governance at the heart of every step along the way. I think just the approach, the bringing together of different stakeholders, all of those pieces are, right, as I said, relevant no matter what your domain or challenge is. And so,
Yeah.
I really appreciate you putting that together and walking that
Absolutely.
through for us. Well, perfect. So now we will turn to Ty Howard for his presentation. I'll give a deeper introduction of him and his work. So Ty Howard is the Chief Information Officer and Interagency IT Director for Frederick County Government, where he leads enterprise technology strategy aligned with the county executive's transition plan and the digital Frederick vision. He worked closely with agency leaders and a multidisciplinary team across cybersecurity, infrastructure, GIS, and digital services to deliver secure, modern, and community-focused solutions. His work focuses on responsible AI adoption, workforce readiness, and advancing the county's digital front door approach to service delivery, which we'll hear a little bit more about today. Ty is a graduate of the AI Government Leadership Program, as we mentioned before, and he brings more than 25 years of experience across technology, education, and public service. So I'm really looking forward to hearing your presentation, Ty. Over to you.
Thank you, and I'm honored. Let me make sure you can see my screen here. Can you see that? Can you see my screen? Let's see here, share.
Yeah, if you just go back to previous screen. So yes, right there is perfect.
Perfect. Well, first and foremost, I'm honored to be a graduate of the Partnership for Public Service. How it actually happened was interesting. I was attending John Hopkins, their executive AI training, and our CFO reached out and said, "Hey, by the way, Ty, here's some free training." And so, the learner in me was passionate about, let me go through this program. And so, in hindsight, you kind of you kind of pause and like, do I have the time, of the commitment? But working through this, it was like magic, right? And so, really, being I don't want to say forced, but having the opportunity to work on assignments kept me looking at what we were doing at Frederick County and kept me thinking through how we were doing it and tying it back. So it all tied back and coalesced very nicely. And so, interestingly enough, my final paper and proposal, for this program was AI Vision Frederick County. And so, what if, so to speak. And so, one of the core things that's big for Frederick County and our county executive in this administration is, how do we look at innovation, right? And how do we become more digital? And so that's something big coming through the door. And looking at the strategic nature, what we're looking at doing, how do we leverage technology? How do we meet people where they are, especially in the day of, or after the fact of COVID, realizing that people are connecting remotely. And so, how do we do that? And so, from out of that and out of several other iterations came the concept beyond just having a digital dashboard, but what would it take to have a digital front door, right, that encompassed everything? And so, interestingly enough, in looking at the governor's office and talking what they're doing, the concept, there's actually a session coming up soon too regarding this digital vision. So it's great to see government converging around the idea of a digital front door. Some people see that door initially as just links, links, landing page, but others see it as a lot more, and we'll talk about that a little more later. But so again, the call to action here is a unified front door, AI enabled, governed, which is key word. If there's a concept called tragedy of the commons, an area not governed becomes a tragedy. So making sure it's governed, and then measurable public value. So that's the key. That's the core concept on our journey. This structure right here, when I came to Frederick, I remember our CAO. We were coming from MACO, which is a huge conference for counties in Maryland, and people were scared to death coming out of that session because AI was starting to pick up speed. It was like Skynet, right? Everyone was concerned. What do we do? And so, sitting down, looking across the table, he said, "So what's our game plan, Ty, with AI?" And it was interesting. So reaching out to my team, reaching out to other directors, and then really looking at it, right? And looking through this structure, right? Looking at our county executive saying her transition plan, automation, all this reflects that. Failing forward, deliver on virtual service delivery, data driven, data programs. So we could not possibly go the other way, which was apparent. So we had to lean into it. And with that said, we framed it as harnessing fire. And so there's a presentation at the director's level with all the directors there across departments, 35, 40 directors. Let's not run from this. Fire can burn. Fire can keep you warm. It can be used as a weapon, but also fire actually melds a steel that gets us day to day to work. So let's harness it. And there's those that should not use fire, given their jobs, right? And so it's highly combustible, or maybe you're prone to burning things. And so really looking at that, not being afraid of AI, rather thinking smart and controlling AI and harnessing it. And so at the center of this is really, as I work through our counties, aligning our IIT with the CE's transition plan and also the broader Livable Frederick, it became apparent that we had to move forward, and we did. And so, as you can see here in this structure, we have AI innovation as initiative. We have it as a program, right here. We also have it projects like Copilot, which we pushed out, and then we're looking at bringing ChatGPT enterprise wide and identifying our big three, but really encouraging the use of that. As I mentioned earlier, director training, as well as sessions where my digital work service team, our digital work service team, worked together to educate individuals that were passionate about that, realizing that innovation can happen and spawn anywhere, right? And so it wasn't like, hey, you get a license, but we wanted to encourage people. And so all this was CE aligned. And so this strategic WBS you'll find hung up in IIT. And so as we think, where does it fit? And clearly AI fits back to that overall strategic direction. So in going through the public service program, partner public service program, that opportunity emerged even more. I know one of our core items from the county's transition plan committee that supported the CE coming through in, where do we go, what do we do? That digital dashboard was core, but as we start thinking more, we start realizing like data is and has been for decades to the business the new gold, the new oil in Silicon Valley. Companies, they live off data. They're billion-dollar valuations because of data. And such is also true with government. We have a lot of data. And so if you see here from permits and inspections, working with our permitting director at Citizen Portals, our communications director, 311, Civic Plus, GIS, a lot of dashboards. So the concept beyond just having, having the dashboard, what if? And so what if, and so this is, some of it's aspirational, having a CRM. And so that front door knows who that person is, right? They know why they're there. They know they were here last time, and they're getting information. So I liken it to this. Some see that dashboard as, they see that link, that first page landing page. You click a link and you get to anywhere, but you get lost. Flip that internal and look at it. What if it's an entry point? So when you click on that link, you go into rooms, and it knows your rooms. It knows you. It wraps around you. Similar to other services like Amazon, Facebook, what you bought last time. So, but at the core, getting back to that tragedy commons concept, is data integration, tagging data, extremely important. Security and governance, right? Because data was good yesterday, data is bad today. Data is like food. It's perishable at times. And then putting AI automation on it. And AI automation really is looking at those AI services long term. And this is not turnkey. This is more or less visionary. Being able to level Azure service or Microsoft service to be able to, once when you curate that data and put it where it needs to be, enable people to log in based off their profile and access that data and use the AI on it. So AI makes sense where there's no sense because it follows patterns. And so this actually speaks to that. And so, getting to that, a digital Frederick strategy would be enterprise foundation. So we're working with our partner Gartner, and we're working at that initial bedrock. Where's the data going to exist? Is it secure? Is it safe? And let's put that first iteration of data there, right? And create those pipelines, those connections, right? Where we those service level agreements with different department heads where they know that they're serving up that data and they're managing that data and they're getting it to that bedrock. And then future data warehouses and data lake layers. So few organizations, based off my research, I know the Netherlands that are doing well with it, have really hit that next level of a data of that front door. So the vision is having a unified entry point 24/7, and tying back to Kate, even from the standpoint of 311, 911, being able to decouple those and ensure that people aren't calling 911 or calling numbers. They know they know where to get the information. So providing that personalized experience, task-based navigation, and just real-time status and updates, and the system effectively knows them. Now, right here, down here, some people see the website, as a website. So 150 to 750K, right? It's easy to start up. It's like a Cessna. For those that know airplanes, it can take off rather easy, right? Low upkeep, so to speak. Government portals. And this is why we have to start looking at capital dollars, and the county is looking at capital dollars because they realize this is not an OpEx operational thing. Just like we build buildings, we need to start building digital infrastructure, right, that supports and meets people where they are. And then you have your integrated digital systems like a 747 or 15 million to 75 million. So it's important to realize, right, where you are and where you need to be as an organization. But the government portals and the integrated digital platforms start knowing the person. This is a power slide, and this was presented at Mako. And a lot of good feedback on this because it really told our story, government story, and probably a story people hear. It's the AI vision progression from blurry to clear. And so a lot of people are very blurry with it. They're still trying to figure it out. Manual process, they're ad hoc, they're using it for word searches. But as it gets closer, blurry but recognizable. And I think we've moved beyond this as a county. We're legal to drive in Maryland at maybe 2060, but 2080, basic understanding, Gen AI, which we've leaned into, search, basic NLP, speech to text. But what I'm talking about now is the next generation of 2040. RPA, automation, document intelligence, mid-tier natural language processing, vision pilots. So this is what we aspire to do. And so the county is supportive of falling forward, but taking our time and being smart. But this is what we're looking at doing in the future as far as moving forward regarding AI. This right here is a quick mock-up, leveraging AI based off of an existing project that we have. I use storyboards that were stories, agile stories that we were sharing with Gardner regarding possible dashboard features. I've just turned AI on it, and I turned our brand on it, and I created a visual so we can start talking about what we want it to be. So you can see here, Ask AI, my dashboard. In the corner, you have the profile of the citizen. I'm a public safety officer. So based off of their view, and again, this is aspirational and what could be, it starts telling their story in their dashboard. So it's going to take some time and effort. But I'm confident that this is the future of a lot of organizations. So reports and analytics. So really meeting people where they are. And right here, here's a pretty cool tool where, meeting with our CAO the other day, he says, well, hey, you're good at analogies and metaphors. Give me, is there a metaphor to explain the network outage? And so being able to speak, tech to people that maybe understands cars, you can create a metaphor here regarding a pull down, right? I'm a mechanic based off your profile. Tell me how this compares to that. So one is the network, and two, it's showing you how the engine is that core router, the transmission is a distribution layer, the wheels are the axis layer where the PCs and computers, and then key takeaways. So even from an educational perspective, there's a lot of value. So zooming out from a technical perspective, this visual right here speaks to some core systems that can feed this system, right? ERP, public safety, GIS. But we have a lot of data that has value. Long-term vision is being able to have that raw data lake, having that curated data warehouses, and ultimately being able to produce and create citizen dashboards and put AI on that so citizens can leverage the data and not be fed the data, rather they can go get the data, get what they want in the information. Counties API, so other organizations can connect, reporting, and ultimately smart AI. And so this is important though, from the standpoint down here, data governance, it can't be ad hoc. And we're talking about how would we do this policy, what are our policies? So that's why it's going to take a while, but we're up for the challenge: quality, privacy, compliance, and access management. So this is one more view of that, showing you where ultimately those federated systems, ensuring that owners of these data, the data like on the ERP side, public safety, where there's contacts, they're working, collaborating regarding standards, quality checks, SLAs, and they're feeding the system, ingesting and integrating, putting it here in our government data, ensuring our security standards, ensuring its quality, and then ultimately being able to produce these outcomes: trusted data, smarter decisions. And this goes for internal use, because we're focused on data-driven internal making decisions, as well as external use, allowing the community to benefit from data, to address the needs of the citizens and be efficient. So win-win is IT leads with governance. The sources stay autonomous, like the owners of these data, they realize they're serving it up. Data is trusted, usable, and findable. But ultimately, down here, when we put AI on top of that, magic starts to happen, right? And there's services out there that once we have that data that's safe, tagged, curated, and clean and consistent, then we're off to the races in regards to being able to serve that data and that value. So in closing, from an implementation roadmap perspective, I'm a PMP, but I think agile. And so ultimately, the governance and alignment first. And so we're just starting that journey. We're working on that first minimum viable product with Gardner, with our county executive, our CEs, project manager, collaborating, getting people together, and building that initial minimum viable product from the data perspective. But the long-term vision and opportunity is to keep releasing pilots and keep growing. And so in closing, all this can't happen. And here's where success lies and lives is governance, bringing people together, the people, the process, and the technology. And with that said, one day we hope to have agentic AI next 7 to 10 years where it actually knows you and talks to you. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ty. I really appreciate you kind of walking through that, and it's really helpful to see how Frederick County is really thinking about this. Well, great. I think I especially appreciate the focus on, let's see, and if you could stop sharing your screen, Ty, I think we can then bring up a full panel on the screen so we can get to Q&A. Perfect. But I'll just say, Ty, some of the things that really stood out to me that I appreciated is one, the focus on the data, right? As everyone knows, right, like AI is completely reliant on good data. So if we have not enough data, incomplete data, bad data, we're not going to get the outcomes, right, that we're looking for. And so that focus on making sure that data is in the right place, that it's being curated, that it's being taken care of, that is so critical. I talk to so many public sector leaders who that's the stage they're at, right? They're still trying to get their arms around the data piece of this, and they're being pushed faster and faster to try to then add the AI layer on top of it. And so I think that's a really helpful insight. I also appreciated the view into how it's integrated into everything. I think a lot of people come at this and think of AI as like a tool, and I'm going to create a standalone AI thing. It's like, well, that's not really where we're going to get value, right? The value is going to come from integrating it into the existing, right, whether it's services or technologies that we're using. Well, perfect. Thank you both so much for those presentations. I think it was really helpful insight into your work. As I've said before, we're going to do a short Q&A where I'll ask a handful of questions here for our panelists, and then we'll be opening it up to everyone. So a reminder, please use the Q&A feature. You may have to click the circle with the 3 dots to get to the more, and then find the Q&A there if you're not seeing it right away. So my first question to both of you is, as you've laid out these journeys that you've been on, whether it's in these specific projects or just your career as a whole, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned as you've seen AI solutions implemented in government, whether that's from examples of it going really well or even examples of it not going so well? And let's start with Kate.
The biggest lessons?
Yeah.
Oh man, I think you mentioned it a second ago about data not being ready. Like if I was just going to be fully transparent, it is a hot mess. There's a lot of structured data, unstructured data. Some departments have analysts and researchers, while others are still using Excel or paper. So there is a lot of readiness that has to take place for us to even have our data ingested into systems. And I think there's a change management piece of understanding that frontline worker, what they do is data and how it feeds into a bigger picture of how we drive decisions. And so there is this change management piece of literacy, of understanding the different levels of security of the type of data that we work with, because it is sensitive. And then how, the minute stuff that someone might be doing and not be able to see that connection to that bigger picture of how mayor and council are driving decisions. And so we are working on the data cleanup as well as that literacy piece in conjunction. They have to happen at the same time.
Absolutely. No, that's universal for sure. Ty, how about you? What's some of your biggest lessons learned?
Well, 2 things jump out. One is policy and security first, so everybody feels safe regarding, hey, what are the risks? That you can realize there's more ROI in using it than not, and kind of weighing in what's the probability of there being an issue and figuring out how you reduce that probability. The other is really adequately funding. You can have a lot of aspirations, but if the funds don't follow it, then chances are it's not going to move that direction. And I'll add a third. The third is really senior level vision and support, saying, hey, this is what we do, this is where we're going. Let's all work together to move in that direction.
Can I piggyback
Absolutely.
off of that really quick? The
Please.
funding piece. So the funding piece obviously is very important. But I honestly think not having all of the funding is almost a blessing, because if I had all of the money in the world, I would throw it at whatever came at me that was shiny and brand new. And not having the funding causes us to slow down and really evaluate what's needed, and really evaluate and assess where we're at and what should be implemented in a thoughtful, meticulous way. So it's like
Yeah.
cursing and a blessing. I just want to like,
Right.
yes, I wish I had the money, but it's okay that it's not there because it's causing us to really assess what's needed.
No, that's a great point. And yeah, Ty, I appreciate your kind of highlighting that the governance and the policies and the role that that plays. I think a lot of people hear governance and they think, oh, bureaucracy, it's going to slow things down. But you know, the governance is there to build the trust, and without the trust, right, you're not going to get anywhere. No one's going to want to interact with the tool that you spend all this, you know, limited money building, if there's no trust. So I appreciate that highlight. You know, you both are from, you know, graduates of our AI government leadership program. And so obviously that's a program where we're not talking at a deep technical level. It's this like leadership, like what are the questions that should be being asked, right? How are people, you know, how do leaders in government bring people together and drive towards results? So the question I have for you is, what role did leadership play in the success of these, you know, AI initiatives that you're working on?
Tell you want to take that first?
Yeah, I guess I'll go first. It really was the perfect storm or triad where we were going, what we are doing with AI internal, then going to the John Hopkins training, and then being able to work with Partnership Public Services and start thinking vision and big picture. To your point, sometimes you can get caught in the weeds, right? You can't see the forest. And so it allowed me to look at from a broader perspective, doing the vision, the mission, and then look back at our existing vision and mission and see how they could interconnect. And so it was a concept document. The concept of the digital front door was expanded based off of the strength of being an alumni, being able to and the deliverable. And so that actually moves us further to be able to start thinking what could be.
Wonderful. Okay.
I would add that leadership is essential for the buy-in to advance and adopt this technology. I'm lucky that my CIO is very forward-thinking in terms of advancement of adoption. That said, our city manager is not. And so it's this balance, which again is not bad. It causes you to slow down and work on why people are not trusting and what are those concerns that they're worried about, and be more thoughtful and have more intention with that adoption. And so leadership is essential, I think, at all levels for this to be successful.
And I would like to just follow on that too. It's really everybody needs to realize they're on their own journey. Like as a college student athlete, everybody's journey is different, right? Some people aren't playing football in little league to be pro; they're just doing it for the fun. Some people want to go to college. Some people want to go pro. You know, and such is also true regarding what's your mission, right? And so how much effort. So you need to determine for your organization at that point in time what's your mission, where you're trying to go, right? And so another organization may say we want rapid transformation. Another one may say, hey, we don't want to be bleeding edge. We just want to be on a safe edge and make sure we're keeping up. So it's really having that executive level discussion regarding where it fits and what your mission is, which came out of the Partnership Public Services effort.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think there's such a push, right, to be using it more, using it in more ways, and so that like taking the step back, understanding where your mission is, right? So rather than using, you know, running AI projects for the sake of using AI, where can we actually use it to help achieve our mission? I love that. I'd love to dive in a little bit deeper, Kit, on what you said about buy-in, and I'm going to go ahead and pull in a question that we've had. It's from someone that ties into that. He said, "Have you experienced any roadblocks or barriers in trying to implement these programs across your governments? How have you achieved buy-in effectively?" So I know we've touched on a few of these pieces, but we'd love to dive a little bit deeper, specifically on, you know, suggestions you have for building buy-in, you know, for achieving that buy-in, and then maybe other roadblocks that you can kind of warn folks about that you've encountered.
Yeah, great question. Absolutely. I've had barriers to adoption and roadblocks. I would start with we'll start with buy-in in itself. So I think it's really important to have top-down, bottom-up discussions. And I have created an AI club here at the city of Tucson. It's literally just a Teams thread, and people are sharing news or prompting, or I'm worried about this, or concerns. And so it creates a culture of where it's safe to discuss what's really taking place just in the world right now, right? Like not just in our work, but how is this changing the way in which we communicate, the way in which work is done? Let's have that safe space for that. I think that's one way to help create buy-in. Because again, if I don't have leaders or managers or directors buying in, but I have lower level employees that are really excited about this technology, like how do we come together and find some common ground? So there's that side. In terms of pilots and things like that, absolutely, there's that change management piece is challenging because there is I'm going to pick on our fire department. Our fire department, so thankful for them and the work that they do, but they have a culture, a way that things have always been done. And there is a new technology that I know will help our EMS workers, and I'm very excited about it. And then I have EMS workers that are like, this is the way I've always done this, and like I don't want to change what I've always done, because they're not seeing those downstream effects. And so I think it's a way of selling them on how this is beneficial to them and how it will enhance them, and they're not necessarily worried about the behind the scenes insurance piece, or how this will help reports to the state department, or how it will help a patient transfer to the emergency room. They're not concerned about that. They're concerned about their job, getting their job done, and then maybe going home. And so I need to find their pain points and sell to their pain points. And then, when I talk to the insurance people, I sell to their pain points and talk to their pain points. So it's the same technology, a little bit different conversation, to create buy-in at all those different levels.
Absolutely. Love that. How about you, Ty? What kind of barriers have you overcome?
I agree with everything with that Kate mentioned. So she's spot on, and it really ties back to that people, making sure that people, process, technology don't lead with the technology. That doesn't excite most folks. Technology, if anything, it may scare them. So it's really looking at the people. What are your fears? What are your concerns? What are you trying to do? Right? It's also, hey, here's how this ties back to our vision, our mission, and so really bringing those along, and having, and we did something similar to what Kate and her team did. We had for over 2 months sessions where we bring people together, and they do the same thing, talk about the systems, the tools, encourage use. Uh, so I'd say people, the process, and how we're going to do it, and we're working on that now. So Chat GTP, Copilot, that's the beginning, but now, and the one thing that became apparent too is also making sure that from a procurement perspective, and I just want to kind of dovetail that it's smart growth, and that when new items do come in that are AI driven, that IT has eyes on it, from a security perspective. So working with our procurement department, and making sure that we know, because today it had AI, their solution to, yesterday it didn't have AI, but today it has AI, and is it good AI, right? All AI is not good at AI. So really security as well. So people, process, and technologies at the center.
Wonderful. Appreciate that. I'm going to pull in another question that we've got. This one's specific to Kate, but I think there's a aspect of it, Ty, that's certainly applicable to your work as well. So the comment and question is, fascinating seeing Kate's specific example and then broadening out to Ty's story, which feels really daunting. Question for Kate: how did you get from the unknown of AI to this specific 911 project? So maybe for both of you, if you could kind of speak to that journey of, starting out with AI being a really unknown amorphous thing, all the way to a specific project that we're implementing.
Yeah, another great question. I agree with whoever wrote that. Ty's example is daunting. It's big, it's massive, it's exciting at the same time. At the city, we have our partners bringing use cases to us. So I shouldn't say I'm not. I am out there kind of meeting people and seeing where I'm like, oh, AI could fit in really here and help their workflow or help their team that's understaffed. But really, the need is coming from departments. They're coming to us and saying, hey, we found this solution, and then we analyze it from there and decide whether or not it fits within the city. As Ty was mentioning with procurement, these products aren't static. And so as we think about adopting them and procuring them, they enter in today, and then in 6 months, they've changed their functionality. It has agentic features, which changes their risk posture. We have to keep all of that in mind. But really, which is nice, is that the use cases are coming from the people that want them and need them versus it being forced on them. And so that's one way, I think, already to get that buy-in.
I would add my earlier experience. I have a master's in instructional technology and adult learning. And I remember back in the 90s, they were talking about AI, and it was so far off. And so, lo and behold, my son, my 22-year-old son tells me, hey, a couple of years ago regarding ChatGPT. And so realizing that seed had grown to a tree, and so seeing it branch off. In regards to, effort, I just want to be clear regarding our focus. Initially, it's a minimum viable product. So we're going to do dashboards with the long-term goal of centralizing and growing that. And so some of the CRM solutions, that's not baked in yet. But if we're thinking where the puck's going or where things could be, the goal is, can we get there? It may next be minimal viable product regarding dashboards, growing that, data bedrock, data lake, can we get a CRM? Because some governments do have CRMs, and how do we start customizing that? And or will these CRMs start doing this? Where they start baking it in and be ahead of us. So it sounds daunting, but AI is daunting. So I say that by the next 10 years, it's going to be very feasible. Thank you.
I love that. And I appreciate, I think several of your answers for these past several questions are really focused on this, right? The role of people, right, at the center of it. I've heard many people say, in a lot of these technology projects, the technology is the easier part, right? It's like, it's working with the people, it's getting the right stakeholders, it's bringing people along with you, all of that. And so I appreciate that focus on, right, if you're going to be doing this for, like you were saying, Kate, if it's for folks in the fire department, like they need to be brought from the very beginning because they're the ones, right, who understand best their use case and can like help inform that. And so I appreciate all those examples. We have a couple related questions that have come in that I'm going to kind of combine into one. And so the first is around how is changing your outlook, how is this changing your outlook on procurement, working with contracted services that support your municipalities? And how is this changing the outlook of your CFO divisions? So thinking about the procurement of these tools. And then the related question is, what are some of your biggest lessons learned from working with AI vendors who may not necessarily understand your local government context? So I know you both have talked about, working with vendors and what that process is. So yeah, so from a procurement vendor relationship, would be curious to hear your experiences and advice.
Ty, would you like to start?
Yeah, I can kick it off. Prior to my arriving at Frederick, there was a great relationship. So there was some forward thinking where anything IT goes through IT. And so procurement notifies and flags IT leadership right away. And we have a mature cybersecurity team, security team where they look, they vet, they approve. And so that's kind of been our saving grace to make sure now things don't sneak in. Now, do things sneak in after? Yeah, it can happen, but it's really been throttling what's coming through the pipeline. We are talking about working further with our legal where possible, because there's some big players out there that it's their ball. Making sure there's agreements that they're letting us know if you do add AI or you do anything upgrade that you need to let us know, right? And so rather than you just upgrade it after a year of doing business, so it's still work in progress. And I think, like many of us, we're still working through it. But so at a high level, it's working with procurement, ensuring that there's a single entry point that's being managed and throttled, and working with legal regarding looking at the contracts and trying to work the contracts and be able to put some controls around, rampant AI, additions.
For me, my experience at the city of Tucson, my first year, we realized that all of our contract language needed to be updated. So myself, so IT, legal, procurement, we sat together for multiple meetings and worked on updating our contract language, which was really important because it was missing a lot of red flags regarding advanced technology. From there, I now sit in meetings with procurement all of the time, and I'm working on RFPs for our housing department, for chatbots, and so there's a close working relationship, lots of discussion back and forth. There's a name to the face, so we know who to ask questions to. I think that's really important. In terms of vendors, the reality is a lot of vendors are not ready for government. They're not ready for the government tenant. And these are even some of the bigger players. And so Snowflake, which is a data lake, or Microsoft, like the big players, don't have these features available for us yet. And so while they're working on FedRAMP and CGIS and SOC 2 and all the compliance measures we need to operate in the city government, that allows us time to get ready, get our data ready. I mean, I got a message Monday that Cortex, which is a feature in Snowflake, which is where we house our data, they just had the AI feature ready for us for government. And so we're really excited. We have a meeting on Friday. But for these smaller vendors, they're not aware maybe of the compliance related things like FedRAMP and SOC 2 that they need to come ready. So there's a lot of things that vendors need to do to get ready to play in our space, as well as on our side, updating our language, getting ready with our data so that when the vendors are ready, we're ready, and then it's a nice, happy marriage.
Absolutely. I mean, that's something I hear from public sector leaders all the time. And one of the reasons why we focus so much on AI literacy is, there's a flood of vendors, right, coming to especially local government, and this need to be able to assess claims, right, that are being made by vendors. And again, that's one of the components of our AI government leadership program is at least having a basic enough understanding to be able to hear a claim being made by a vendor and saying, yes, that seems like what the technology is capable of, or this is probably not the best use case. Well, great. I think just one last question that I'm going to pull in here from the Q&A. Let's see. Eric Volk says, I was interested in hearing more about what Kate's team has done in relation to addressing bias in the AI solution. So what types of bias were encountered and how were they addressed? So curious to hear more about that piece of your use case.
Yeah, we're asking those questions up front. So as we're analyzing solutions in the Advanced Technology Committee, one of our members is the Chief Equity Officer. And so their role is there to kind of ask those questions. In terms of like data sets and things like that, we're not getting down to that level with vendors, like what data is it trained on? But we're aware of hallucinations. We're aware that in Tucson, we're an hour away from Mexico. We're very diverse here. We're multi-language. And so we're aware that we might find hallucinations or rates of error just based on those factors. And so being aware allows us to be keen and checking as we're monitoring as we roll out and into operation or not. Where are we meeting those standards? And are they meeting our standards?
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Well, we're quickly approaching the end of our time together. And so just a reminder, we've been recording this session, and so the recording will be shared in the coming week on the partnership, so on the AI Center for Government website, and I'll have our team drop a link in the chat for that, as well as the Partnership for Public Service YouTube channel. Also, my colleague Sam is going to put a link to a very, very short survey into the chat. Really encourage you all to take the time to do that. It's just 2 quick questions, two required questions, maybe 1 optional question if you want to provide some more feedback. But really just want to thank Ty and Kate, first and foremost, for the work that they do every single day, but also for taking the time out of it to give back to this community and to share these insights. And so just really appreciate you both. And any final words, Ty or Kate, anything we didn't ask that you want to leave with the audience?
1, try this Gen 911, and 2, thank you so much for having me and hanging out with us over this hour.
And thank you for the opportunity as well. And I appreciate all that Partnership Public Service has done. So thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate it and enjoy the rest of your day.
Take care.
Ciao.